Welcome to First Unitarian Church. It's a delight to see all of you here today. Welcome to those who are joining us on Zoom. We're also really glad that you're here, and a very special welcome to our visitors and guests. We're super glad to see you and hope that you'll stay after our service, meet us at the welcome table, and let us get to know you a little bit. I have just a few announcements as we begin. First, don't forget we have Teams Night this Tuesday night. Pizza at 6:30, team meetings at 7. And if you're not currently on one of our volunteer teams, you are invited to come and help our environmental ministry write letters to lawmakers on behalf of Great Salt Lake. So there's something for you to do. And we won't have Teams Night in December, but we have something else. I will tell you about it next week. This Thursday, Thanksgiving Day, we'll have our annual potluck. Come and celebrate a season of gratitude and abundance with your church community. It's at 1 o'clock in the afternoon right here in Elliott Hall. Please bring a potluck item to share, and we would love to know what it is so we know we have enough food. So if you're planning to come, please sign up at the table in Elliott Hall after worship. There are also opportunities to help with setup and cleanup. Next Sunday, December 1st, it's tree trimming time. Say that 10 times fast. We will have our annual holiday party. It's all ages. Come and help make an ornament for the Christmas tree or help hang the greens. And circle suppers. We will have 2 circle suppers planned for the first 2 Saturdays in December. These are for people who are new or new-ish to our congregation. It's a great opportunity to get acquainted with others in an intimate setting over dinner. So if you're interested in coming to a circle supper, just ask about it at the welcome table after service. And we also are looking for more hosts. Maybe you have been around for a long time. You'd still like to get to know new people. I know I do. So if you would like to be a host, you can have the circle supper at your home, or you can use Elliott Hall. Just talk to Stephanie and she can help you set up a time. We would like to welcome to the pulpit this morning our lay minister, Darlene Thayne, who will be speaking to us on our monthly topic of justice. And now, with our announcements behind us, we'll begin our service of worship with these words by the Reverend Paul Bicknell. There are some heights to which we have not risen and never will. There are some depths to which we have not fallen and never will, we pray. Somewhere between, there are places where we can reach up and reach out for the strength we need for our journey. This is such a place. Thus we pause for refreshment. Thus we worship in thanksgiving. Now I invite you to rise in body or in spirit, and let's sing together number 349.
morning, everybody. I have some exciting news before I start my homily. As you may recall, last month I spoke about political pluralism, and I mentioned that I was campaigning aggressively for a dynamic, may I say progressive woman to be elected to the Davis County School Board of Education. Well, this Thursday, after 2 weeks of counting and recounting, after the election, the count was finalized, and she won by 92 votes out of 21,000. So I just had to share that news with you and remind you that every vote matters. Now for my homily. Many of you already know that I have been a public school teacher in Utah for over 20 years. I taught almost every grade, including being a reading specialist for 1 year. It was my vocation and my avocation, but I mostly enjoyed teaching 3rd and 4th graders at Bountiful Elementary School for most of that time. The hardest part was reaching each child in my class on their level with 30 students of wide-ranging abilities in my class, emotional stability, support from home, intellectual. You other teachers out there know exactly what I'm talking about. I dove in with all my heart and soul to make it fun and interesting as I taught about 10 subjects to those beautiful little sponges. But no matter what I did, the inequality of their abilities and my inability to meet their needs haunted me. How could I make the education they were getting work for them? Let me tell you just one story about many of justice in the public school system. His name was Johnny. He was born as a twin way too early. So he and his twin brother had many issues to deal with as preemies. His brother was nonverbal and had strong physical limitations, so he spent most of his time, all of his time actually, in a special education classroom geared specifically to help him on his level. Johnny, on the other hand, was pretty high functioning. He couldn't see well, but he could participate in almost every activity in our classroom. He was so enthusiastic and adorable and confident as long as he had extra help. He had what is called generally an IEP, Individual Education Plan, which specified what extra considerations would be given to him, like seating him close to my desk or adjusting his assignments and expectations and monitoring his work to make sure that he could feel successful. Public schools are required to have these accommodations, such as IEPs and what are called 403Bs, to help children with particular difficulties, which are implemented where needed and possible to even out the playing field for these students. Frankly, it is extra work for the teacher, and it costs money. But in the long run, it saves people and society, so I believe that it's generally worth the cost. I sometimes used volunteers to help Johnny, but eventually it became almost impossible to meet all of his needs, so there was an aide hired to work with him on occasion. His parents and I agreed that that made a big difference. However, by the end of 4th grade, when he was scheduled to move on to 5th grade, his mother became very anxious about how he would be able to handle the upcoming year, since everything seemed to be getting harder for him to manage in a regular classroom. She shared her concerns with me, and I could also see the writing on the wall, and I agreed with her. She formally requested that the school district provide a mostly full-time aide for him during the next year, which was denied. However, this was a uniquely persistent mother fighting for her child, and she eventually hired an attorney to fight the school district about this. It was a fairly long and drawn-out battle, which ended up in a district office with about a dozen people, including doctors and lawyers and district personnel, and one particular witness who was requested to testify, and that was me. Johnny's mother and I had the same goal of making sure that he could function in a regular classroom and would not fall through the cracks, so to speak. So she, knowing that I agreed with her, asked if I would testify that it would be preferable to have Johnny participate in the regular classroom with a full-time aide rather than be placed in the special ed room, which was referred to in education as the least restrictive environment. I was very aware that providing a full-time aid was fairly unusual and expensive for the school district, so I had to think seriously about what to do. What was a young person's life worth? I came to the conclusion that for Johnny's future, it was a fair and a just thing to ask. So I testified to that effect, wondering if testifying against my employer might have consequences for me, but it did not. Well, Johnny did get an almost full-time aide for the next year and extra help for the rest of his school experience. Let's see, where am I? I have kept track of him to some degree, and he is a high-functioning man with a regular job, though he and his brother will most certainly be living at home with their parents as long as they live. What those dear people have had to go through for their two boys is unfathomable to me, but I do believe that justice was served for them. I can only have faith in the Utah voters, and this was before the election that I wrote this. I can only have faith that the voters would agree that fully funding public education for everyone has immense value for the lives and futures of all children, and also for our society. Private schools are not required to follow these protocols or even accept students who need them, so I am a big public school advocate. That is my story of justice in the public school system, which to me just means a fair chance to succeed. During my 20 years of teaching, it is the only time I have been involved in such a request. It seems to me that our public schools are a microcosm of our larger world, where we as a society either choose to help people succeed up front with communal resources or ignore those needs and pay the consequences later. Justice, as one of our Unitarian values, is stated as, we work to be diverse, multicultural, beloved communities where all thrive. May it be so in our classrooms.
Oh, we give thanks, for this precious day, for all gathered here, and those far away, for this time we share, with love and care. Oh, we give thanks, for this precious day. It has become our habit to sing this song each week before we collect the Sunday offering for the work of our church. Of course, many of us are thinking about giving thanks this week. And maybe some of us are having a little trouble figuring out how to do that this year. It's not that we don't have just as much to be thankful for as usual. It's that giving thanks requires perspective. And perspective can be hard to find when we're brokenhearted. So this song takes on special meaning today. It gives us some structure on which to hang our gratitude. Gratitude for the day we have and for the love in our lives. The two things that matter the most, really. From time and love do all blessings flow. I invite you to join me in a spirit of prayer or meditation, opening your heart to this moment, the only one we have. We're here together. Whatever we've brought with us today is good enough. Breathing in, we choose to just rest in the present. Nowhere else to be, nothing to do. This moment is good. I give thanks for this moment. Let your heart open just a little wider and think of those you love and those who love you. It doesn't have to be perfect love. It's okay if you've been a little crabby with each other, or if there's something you don't know how to talk about. It's okay to think of a friend or a loved one that you haven't talked to in a long time. It's okay to think of someone you don't know very well but would like to. All love is okay to be grateful for today. The small ones, the big ones, the great ones, the broken ones, the lost ones. We give thanks for all the love in our lives. Resting in this open space in your heart. Let yourself relax a little more. And think of just one more great thing you've got going on right now. It's almost ski season for real. My car runs great and it's pretty clean right now too. Found a great recipe for Thanksgiving dinner. It can be something small. because little gratitudes open our hearts to bigger ones. Let us sit for a moment in this glow of small gratitudes. For all that is our life, we give our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. Blessed be. If you have been around for a while, then you may remember that we sometimes used to do this thing called Why I Give, where we invited folks forward from the community to talk about why they give to this church. But today we're going to do something a little different called Why I Serve. And so I'm inviting someone from our hospitality team. You know him better as the bell ringer, Jack Markman.
Ding dong. That was good. That got a laugh both services. Morning, everyone. About 5 years ago, I attended my first service here at First Unitarian. I came because of the architecture. It looked like an inviting building, like any good church should. As I came into the chapel proper for the first time, I felt the warm atmosphere of the sanctuary with its big windows and bright enthusiasm. But that wasn't the first thing I noticed. The first thing I noticed were the name tags, or rather the people who were wearing them. I'm sure a lot of us have been to church services, I know I have, where you can go nameless, both literally or metaphorically. And if you're a visitor in those spaces, it's very easy to go unseen. But not here, apparently. Here, I was Jack, right away, and I was greeted by Mark at the door. I was just some college kid. You all knew nothing about me, but in that most basic way, I felt seen and I felt welcomed. So when I started attending, I returned to First Unitarian two years ago in earnest. I was very excited to get my own name tag. And if you don't have one, you should get one later. Before I took the welcome class, before the new member class, before I signed the book, I felt that welcome. I felt like a welcome member of the church, and I wanted to be able to provide that love in return. I felt the responsibility to return that love. Being a greeter, both then and now, is a great way for me to be able to do that, to be able to be the first face that someone sees as they enter the chapel or as they go to Elliott Hall after for our coffee hour, to greet someone personally by name. It's such a simple thing, but it really does make all the difference for people in the first impression they have, or whether they've been coming for 50 years, or whether this is their first time here today. Of course, even with name tags, people still go unseen. If that's you, if you feel unseen today, please stay a while. We'd love to learn your name. We'd love to get to know you and find out why you came here today. If you've been here a while, if you already have a name tag, try talking to someone next to you who you don't know, finding out what their name is and what brought them here today. And if you're unsure of your place in this congregation, where you fit or what you want to do to return the love that you have experienced or hope to experience, maybe try being a greeter or volunteering with our welcome table, to be a member of our hospitality team, to invite other people to come and feel that warmth of this congregation. A simple smile often earns many in return. Or you can just talk to me after. I'd be happy to learn your name anyway.
Thank you, Jack. We are so blessed by the gifts that our newer members bring to us. Thank you to Ira Kaufman for playing the flute for us today. Relatively new member. Yeah. Thank you, choir. Beautiful music today. Really appreciate it. And David and Holly, thank you for that. And Darlene, of course, for pumping up public education. Love it. We will invite our greeters in to collect our Sunday offering today. Take an opportunity to greet one another and say hello. As part of my professional development plan for this year, I've just completed a beginning course in mediation at the law school this semester. Not trying to change careers. I like what I do. Just trying to sharpen my pastoral skills, especially as it relates to conflict. Now, I knew virtually nothing about mediation before taking this class, had no experience with it, didn't really know what mediators do. Now, I have learned that mediation is like, what if a ministry and a law practice had a baby? In other words, mediation is a practice of helping people or parties in conflict find a resolution through listening, and listening through people's positions to get to their interests. The lawyers who are in the congregation will know much more than I do about interest-based negotiation, but now I know something about it, and it's really valuable in managing conflict. So here's what I learned. A position is what a person says they want. I want the car. I want the house. I want the kids. I want half. I want my fair share. And interest, on the other hand, is what the person really wants, or perhaps what they need. I need to get to work. I need to feel safe. I need to be treated with dignity. I need to feel loved. So often, when we are managing conflict in our interpersonal lives, we get focused on staking out our positions and trying to knock others off of theirs in big and small ways. It could be as small as consistently, daily, moving the soap back from the right side of the sink, where somebody puts it, to the left side, where it belongs. A literal position. Or it could be as large as you voted for this person, which means that you voted against me and everything I need and everything I stand for. So we're done. The game is over. Don't talk to me anymore. There's probably a lot of daylight in between, if we're willing to look for it. The daylight shines through panes of interest, not positions. What need was being served by voting this way or that way, for this candidate or that one? When we try to understand the electorate, we often focus on people's positions while losing sight of their interests. And the uncomfortable fact is that humans in the real world always have competing interests, not just with others, but within themselves. For example, I have an interest in having clean, breathable air for myself and my neighbors. And I also have an interest in getting to work quickly, for example. In order to pursue a position, we have to decide that one interest supersedes the others. And that requires us to be honest about what all the interests are. Now apply that process to the person sitting across from you at the table on Thanksgiving. What are their interests? If you ask them, you will likely first encounter their positions, not their interests. How do you get someone to talk about their interests? Tough, right? Now go to the next step. How could you get them to talk about their contradictory interests and what they chose to give up to pursue their positions, including the things they may not have even realized they were interested in, things they may not have realized they gave up? It's tough, as I have learned over the past 11 weeks, but I encourage you to give it a try this weekend as you sit down to share a table with people who may be quite different from you, or as you encounter them online or at work. Stay with them. Keep your heart open as long as you can, and try to get to their interests without judging them. And if this is a new practice for you and you flub it up the first few times, don't worry. It's a practice that can keep you busy for the rest of your life. At least if things get complicated or heated over dinner on Thursday, you have a ready out. You can always change the subject and talk about the food. I really love food. I love cooking and eating. I love dining out, and I love eating what other people make. I worked in the hospitality industry for years as a young adult, doing every restaurant job you can think of, from dishwasher to bartender to line cook. And then I moved into wine and spirits, working with wholesalers and producers, winemakers and distillers. I loved the business, and I learned to love food and wine, having grown up in a family for whom simple meals were enough and alcohol was heathen. Those Thanksgivings while I was in the industry were the best I've ever experienced. Cooks and waiters trying to outdo one another with home ingredients or those filched from their commercial kitchens, spending a whole week's paycheck on organic vegetables and imported spices, pages of recipes ripped from Food and Wine magazine or ancient, crusty cookbooks from our grandmother's kitchens, cases of small vineyard wines that cost as much as our electric bill, trying to one-up one another with the rarity of the label or the obscurity of the grape, and always at least one showstopper from Burgundy or the Rhone. The rest of the year, we were happy to get by on mac and cheese or leftovers from the previous night's service, but on Thanksgiving, we went all out. I have friends who still remember a certain pumpkin cheesecake that I made one year before corporate America turned everything pumpkin in September. Who knows what we would eat the rest of the month? But for one night in November, we ate like royalty. We were inspired by celebrity chefs like Thomas Keller, Alice Waters, Charlie Trotter, chefs who sacrificed everything for the dining experience, created anew every night from the venerated examples of the great kitchens of Europe. Now, this was before Food Network, before TV cooking competitions, also before work-life balance, I think, and before wellness. Now we have documentary exposés on Netflix about how destructive that chef culture can be. But at the time, it felt glamorous and exciting to be a part of it. One of the great celebrity chefs of that time, Grant Achatz, was a pioneer of what came to be known as molecular gastronomy, which stripped everything we knew about food down to the bare struts and rafters. We heard about the feats performed by El Bulli in Spain and Noma in Copenhagen, bubbles or pearls of flavored essences, tiny herbs placed on the dish just so with tweezers, bags of scented smoke puffed under plates to evoke aromatic memories. It was science fiction food. It was amazing. Chef Achatz's first solo restaurant, Alinea, still serves this kind of food at hundreds of dollars per person each night. His food is described as anti-comfort food. Precise, poetic, the kind of food that makes people mad. Achatz complains that people still get up occasionally and stomp out of the restaurant in a huff. So challenging are the bites he sets before them. In 2007, Achatz was diagnosed with what one journalist called the most poetic of maladies, stage 4 squamous cell carcinoma of the mouth. The only cure, doctors said, was to remove his tongue and replace it with muscle from his leg, which would mean he could never taste again. If he didn't, he was told, he'd be dead in a month. He refused to get the surgery. People said this was shallow of me, but it was going to strip me of who I was, Achatz said. It wouldn't have been about the physical deformity or not being able to talk or taste. This is the path I've been on since I was 17. They were going to derail me from that one thing that's who I am. Achatz found an experimental treatment at the University of Chicago and worked his treatments in between shifts at the restaurant. Somehow he survived. He lost all his ability to taste, so he began to approach food visually, drawing new dishes and relying on the tastes of his sous chefs to work out the flavors. When his tastes began to return, they returned just as poetically as they had been lost. The first flavor to return was sweetness. The next was salt. Sweetness, the first taste any of us know that we develop in the womb and prefer after we are born. And salt, essential for brain and nerve function, it is the light switch of flavor. Without it, food tastes dull and flat, but just a dash and that same food bolts to life. Salt gives other spices character, affects the color and texture of food, and preserves perishables. No wonder it has been a treasured resource since ancient times. From these two elemental tastes, Achatz was able to rebuild his senses, his dishes, his career, and his life. And now he continues to soar to new culinary heights with his new restaurant called Next. Now, let me be clear. This is not how I would recommend somebody recover from a cold, much less cancer, okay? The restaurant business is notoriously brutal, and had I been the chaplain on duty when Achatz came in for treatment, we would have had a little sit-down about work-life balance, okay? So please don't take away the message today that you should push through illness or that you are obliged to make meaning of your suffering. But what I take from this story is that when everything seems like it's ending, when everything we thought we could count on seems to be going up in smoke, that's when we go back to first principles. Strip everything down to the struts and the rafters. Take it all apart. What remains, holding everything else up? I've spent a lot of time since the election wrestling with wondering how so many of my compatriots could have such different values than the ones I voted on. Now, with a little distance and my mediation class to inform me, I understand that our values may not have been so different. It may instead have been our competing interests that got in the way. But I've also been forced to get real about my own interests and how they express themselves in my values. Which values are really important to me and why? Our new statement of UU values could give us a handy shortcut, but it's only a shortcut, and it's useless if we don't spend time really wrestling with why they matter and what else matters to us as individuals. I've realized that working as a young adult in restaurants, I valued creativity and imagination, and I worked hard in service of those values. I valued hospitality, which expressed itself as sharing and showing others a good time, a memorable time. I valued created family, the family that was patched together through circumstance, the people who were in the trenches with you and would show up for you, thick or thin, who always made a place at the table for you, who would share the little they had to make this moment feel generous and magical. I'm in a season of life now where I'm reevaluating what I value, how my values and interests have changed and why, and what's important to me now. I Think about the values that were so important to me back then. Which ones have changed? Which ones stayed the same? There are things I value now for which I had no frame of reference as a young adult. And there are things that seemed so important then. Now I have to laugh at myself how seriously I took things that just don't seem to matter that much anymore. I bet it's the same for you too. In moments like this one we're in now, when we stand at the edge of losing so much, the values that are most important become crystal clear. We let go of what's not important. We hold fast to what matters, the things that make us who we are. And we fortify ourselves and each other to do whatever it takes to preserve those values. We cannot do it alone. We need each other for courage and comfort, for support and sympathy. We need to be ready to protect those who are vulnerable. We need to take turns, rest and work in shifts, inspire each other, and make each other laugh because we value joy, and despair is never in our best interest. We need most of all to know we are not alone. As you go into these holidays, whether you plan to make merry or simply hold on till it's over, may you be reminded of your deepest, truest values. May they be clarified for you. May you be strengthened in your relationships, anchored deeply in love and connection. And above all else, may you taste sweetness. Amen. Our closing hymn is number 52. I invite you to join me in singing as we rise. Please be seated. As we close, I bring you these words by the Reverend Charles Howe. May we go forth from this place thankful for the life that sustains us and renews us, and open to the grace that surrounds and surprises us. May we go forth from this place with openness and with thanksgiving. friends, thank you so much for being here. Please be careful if you're traveling this week, and we'd love to see you back here next Sunday.